on the auto. It's ugly though. It's a college card. That's on new. And then this one came in. That's
Oh, the Edger and Cooper you're talking about.
Yeah, number out of 5. It's disgusting.
Thank you all for tuning back in for another episode of March Madness Talk with Tevin with Unknown Zone. Make sure to follow him, like we always say, on Whatnot and Twitter. Unknown Zone TJ on Twitter. You will laugh at his sports takes, but you won't disagree with many of them because he is on point, but they're funny. Tevin, how's your bracket look right now? Let's talk about that. First things first, overall. Do you like your bracket right now, or is it shot?
I don't think it's in a horrible position, only because a lot of those big teams I had winning towards the end anyway, so a lot of them have all moved on. So I think this year's kind of, if you spent the money and you have a good team, you're going to go pretty far, and that's how it looks, because everyone's complaining about the mid-majors not getting much love anymore, but it's because all the mid-major guys are getting popped now. Like, they have that good year, they're all on new teams. They have it this year, same thing, so it's just one of those tournaments, where the big dogs are the big dogs, that's all.
Because I told a lot of people before the tournament that I had my insider info telling me that I thought it was going to be a chalky tournament. The top seeds were going to win, especially early on, you thought. With some exception, because there were a couple of the lower seeds that you felt would have been higher ranked any other year, but just a tough year.
Yeah, for sure.
But let's talk about, speaking of tough year, let's talk about that death region. The one that we highlighted last week. We knew it was going to be some surprising games, but that Western region, Tevin, watching that, the NCAA may have messed it up, but it made for some pretty decent basketball along the way. What did you think this weekend from that?
In my bracket, I didn't have St. John's out of the second round anyways. I felt whether it was Kansas or Arkansas, either or could probably get it done there. Just off stylistic matchups. St. John's don't shoot, and they paid for it this weekend by shooting bad. So Texas Tech is like, for me. I don't think they've had too much of a rough patch, but they're okay. The top half was exactly what I thought it was going to be. Florida got UConn. Obviously, that was a heck of a game. We all had, I think most of us had Colorado State, around the country.
Not me.
Not me. Most people around the country had Colorado State, so that was kind of like one of the fan favorites. Maryland has kept it moving as well. Obviously, most of us in the country, we all had Drake as well in that bracket coming out. So
I don't want to interrupt, but I feel like we're saving a certain game for last, Tevin. Is there a reason we talked about all of them except for, I think, what is that, a 7-10 matchup down the bottom?
Stinky Kansas. They're like my daughter this year. They're very inconsistently upset. Because what is going on? But no. To be on a more serious note, they again, right? Bill Self. I said it all year. He's consistently out coaching the other team. Sometimes the ball just doesn't drop their way. They obviously should have won that game. You can't have 6 turnovers with 3 minutes in the game left, and you're gonna pull that game out. I don't care how good of a team you got. 6 turnovers. That led to easy buckets. So it is what it is, man. I had my Jayhawks going deep. Coming preseason ranked number 1. That's a kind of letdown of a year for us. So it's sad year for me, man. On that aspect, that was tough to swallow watching that. Because it's Bill Self and Calipari. You don't get much better than that. So,
well, I will mention another team that I know you'd like to get on a little bit here, the UConn Huskies. They came out that first round. They won against Oklahoma. They looked pretty decent for the most part. They hit Florida, and for 2/3 or 3/4 of that game, it was, UConn's going to pull this off. They can make a run for this three-peat somehow in this death region. But Florida bottled that up. Florida won that game. And UConn, especially their coach, Dan Hurley, came off the court pretty salty about losing, blaming the officials, I believe, saying they effed us. Is he out of his mind? Is he onto something? What do we see with UConn there?
Out of his mind. Like Kansas, right? I said them, Kansas, Gonzaga. I picked on them all year. When we've talked, periodically throughout the year about the season, they're you either get like a national championship level, or you get some mishaps that just look absurd, and you can't not get 2 offensive rebounds. Tyrese Martin beat you twice. He had the tap out that Walter Clayton hit a three on, and then he had they went to go pinch him. He got out the back of the defense. Boom, ball falls in his hands, and he gets a putback dunk. It's a 5-point swing. You lost the game by 2 because McNeely hit that tough three at the end, which killed betting lines. FYI for everybody. But yeah, like, you know what I mean. So value again, like Kansas, value basketball, man. Don't come to the day it was a bad officiated game. Florida missed 8 free throws for you. Florida couldn't even inbound the ball at the end of the game for you, and you still lost the game. So you have to be perfect versus a 1 seed late in the year. You do. And 2 plays they didn't value the basketball. They got beat to the ball. That led to 5 points. You lost the game by 2. Figure it out.
Now, talking about the South region here, we had a few games in that one that we talked about, and we were pretty on point with. First off, Auburn, I think they look fine. I think they're definitely a team that can come out of that region, and none of us would be shocked. As we were talking about earlier, the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, whether you agree or disagree, again, another NCAA decision that maybe we can talk about a different time. Meanwhile, you have Michigan State still here like we expected with Tom Izzo. We had Iowa State trip up a little bit against Ole Miss, but one I want to let you get the floor on real quick to explain one more time to the people why Louisville did not beat Creighton, and it did not look at any point in that game really that they even had a chance to be in the same arena as them.
In case everyone is wondering, it's just the cold reality of the ACC. They weren't that good. They didn't play many good teams. You played a good team that played in a better conference than you, and the outcome was the outcome. Sadly, what makes it worse, I feel like, is that there's no Big East teams available either. So, how much worse was that loss to Creighton now? You got beat by the other conference that you could say has been very down this year. So, I don't know. I thought it went the way it was going to go. Creighton was going to win that basketball game, and that's exactly what happened. So, I think that was the most overrated team in the country. I couldn't believe they were like ranked like 10th at one point or something like that. People were saying like that's absurd. That team stinks.
Well, you mentioned that. I want to touch on that. We might as well get into it here. The ACC in the Big East, very disappointing results this weekend. Did not impress at all. Did not put on for their conferences. It looks like the best 2 conferences in college basketball would be the SEC and the Big Ten.
Big Ten. These guys are hanging in there right now. The Big 12, but they have a lot less teams. But you still have, I think, BYU's left. Was it Houston? Those Big Ten teams, they love to play that grind, kind of slow. But this year, they look like they can score with the best of them. Because if Michigan just came off 90 versus A&M. A couple of the other teams have already broke like 80-something consistently throughout the bracket. You know what I mean? So I believe, what was it, BYU, Wisconsin? That was a 91-89 game. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So a very high-scoring Big Ten game. So, don't underestimate the Big Ten. I think every year people do it. I think it's a conference that doesn't get a lot of respect because they haven't had it. If I'm not mistaken, that streak is still alive. They have not had a champion in the Big Ten in over 20-something plus years, like 25 plus years. No college national champion has been from the Big Ten in about 25 plus years.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, so like I understand from a championship standpoint, but in the NCAA tournament, that conference is as good as it gets.
So I'll ask you really quickly here: Auburn, Michigan, Ole Miss, Michigan State. Do you think there's a chance we get a battle of the Michigans here, or do you think it's going to be Auburn and probably Michigan State, or even Auburn and Ole Miss?
Ole Miss is probably the most underrated group, obviously, out of 4. They're in a good spot. But they're a top 8 defensive team in the country. And Michigan plays that type of style as well, kind of like a low grind game. If I'm going to pick one, I'm going to pick Tom Izzo every time, this time of the year. It doesn't matter who he's playing. The tough one is the one you love the Michigan guys right now.
Which basketball purely, only basketball. We'll never say that about football.
Let's write that down. No football. We don't go.
X's on the M's.
Yeah. From a basketball standpoint, though, I think that is an interesting matchup. I think they have 2 7-footers that match up perfectly with the big guys from Auburn. So we'll find out whose interior team is a little bit better. If I have to tip my cap, obviously you got to go with the team that was 18-1 in quad one games in their season. So give me Auburn.
So I'm really here, no disrespect to the Eastern region the East region, but I do just want to touch on one or two things here. One being the Duke Blue Devils didn't have the most daunting schedule to start the tournament, but they did impress, I think, in both games. They look good here. Do we think a team like Alabama, or in this case Arizona, can beat them? Or are we going to say Duke is still well on their way to being in the Final Four and possibly beyond?
I think like the only one in their side. I think I said that last year, I believe. Like Alabama might give them the only run for their money. No one else is going to be able to, I think, over there because Alabama is an old team that can, and they pride themselves that they can shoot the ball on a high clip. So I understand that from a basketball standpoint. But Cooper Flagman, I'll repeat it like I said last week. He's the worst matchup in college basketball because he plays the four. And it's tough, man. That kid is 6'9", 6'8", running around out there. He defends, he scores, he passes the ball, he rebounds the ball. So there's no weakness in his game, man. And he's like, again, he's a three, he's going to be a natural three in the NBA. He's a four-man in college that is just matchup nightmare for everyone. Kind of like a Danny Wolf. Like, he can play outside and dribble and, they can really play out there. Like, it's levels to that stuff.
Midwest Conference finally here. We have, I would say, a couple surprises maybe, one of which, we talked about McNeese over Clemson. That was one where we didn't pick Clemson. They didn't screw us over this year. We were good there. Houston, Purdue, Kentucky, Tennessee. Kentucky's here. Kentucky's still here. I think a lot of directions they could have went in that tournament where they got Illinois and lost to them. But Kentucky's still here, and as good as Tennessee is, would we be shocked if we get a Kentucky moving on into that next round to play the winner of Houston-Purdue?
No, I'm not shocked, no. That team is old. They had a Final Four point guard already, Lamont Butler, nation's number one three-point shooter, and I believe Kobe Brea. If I'm not mistaken, Andrew Carr, it's either him, maybe it was his teammate, but I think it was him. He won Player of the Year in the ACC last year. Andrew Carr, who's down low. Amari Williams was Defensive Player of the Year in Drexel. They're loaded. That team is as good as you're gonna find. They still are missing guys, and they a little banged up, but they're old. They're old and tough. So I'm not surprised they're there.
For your pick, Houston, Purdue. Who do you got moving on there?
Give me Houston. They're old. They're tough. LJ Crier's already a national champion. People forget that. Give me them. When they're shooting the three ball the way they are, they're outstanding. They're one of the most elite level teams I've seen this year. They play defense. They pride themselves. They don't give up offensive rebounds. They're tough on that side. They had a couple mishaps versus Gonzaga, so again got closer at the end. But they pretty much controlled that from beginning to end. They never took their foot off the gas. So give me Houston.
I didn't get it from you officially, but Kentucky, Tennessee, who do you see winning that matchup? What's the X factor in that one?
With that being said, yeah, that's a tough one. Give me Kentucky getting into the Elite Eight there. That's tough for me to say. I think that's the best matchup. And, outside of, I think, Auburn, Michigan, I think that is, a matchup in terms of basketball. That's an interesting matchup. But from a basketball game that's going to get played, and you have two prideful schools that are going to go in, the crowd are even not going to like each other, that is a very interesting game. Two clashes of two different styles, up-scoring team with a very, veteran defense. But I'd have to go I got to go Big Blue Nation here again. I think that they're playing for a coach. It means a lot to them coming back to the tournament. And sadly, Rick Barnes never gets it done. So I'd have to go with history and give me Kentucky.
Two more questions, Tev, before I get you out of here. I just want to know, what game or two games are you giving the public they have to watch on Thursday and Friday? I know we don't know the weekend yet, but for Thursday and Friday, what do we have to lock into if we only can watch a game or two?
If you guys want to see an offensive game, I believe it's Alabama BYU going at it, right? That is a game to watch. Both teams are going to shoot the three. They are going to shoot almost probably closer to 70 to 80 three-pointers combined in that game. If you want to see a lot of points being scored, you want to see a lot of, like just offense, that's a game to watch. If you love the pride of college basketball, you go watch Tennessee and Kentucky that night. You go watch that game. You go tune in. You go if you want to watch what like Michigan, Ohio State football is like, Alabama versus Auburn, like those deep, hate each other rivalries in sports. Like that is a game you want to go watch. That Tennessee Kentucky game. It's gonna be the crowds are like you can feel it through the TV. You can cut the game in half with a knife. That's how much tension is going to be in that court. So I can't wait. I love those type of games. It's the best when your team loses early because now I can enjoy this with no stress in the world. No stress in the world.
My team didn't even make the tournament, so that's cool too. I could just enjoy it as a fan as well.
Hey, but shout out to Ohio State and Michigan though, because that's a link together. Roddy Gale, he had a big game versus A&M, and he was at Ohio State last year. So shout out to Roddy Gale, man, in Michigan.
Tevin, the Encyclopedia of College Basketball. Take notes, everyone. Final question here, and I'm giving you credit because last week your player to watch was Igor Demin. Demin? Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
Demin?
Igor Demin.
And I saw his name all over the play-by-play when I had a different game on the multi-screen and that on the phone, looking at, the over-under first half.
Oh, yeah.
Seeing that, and then noticing he's just eating it. I said, wow, Tevin was on point with this one.
Yeah. Igor Demin's a steal, man, in the NBA draft.
But I don't think he's going to be the answer to your the question I have next here. Who is your early pick for people to think is going to be the most outstanding player of the NCAA tournament?
Right now, I'd have to go either. Well, who's killing it? Like you got to go Cooper Flag. They're rolling and steaming it. Like he's by himself right now. I feel like he's kind of like in a category. Sleeper picks, like two guys I think that are going to be underappreciated. If Walter Clayton has another big game like he just did the other day to bail out Florida, big name already. LJ Cryer. If you guys don't know who that is, if you guys aren't like big basketball fans, he's already a national champion, but he's at 30. I believe he just came off a 30-point game versus Gonzaga. I expect him to go nuclear in this one. So LJ Cryer, give me LJ Cryer end of the week.
You heard it here, everyone. Another episode of March Madness Conversation with Tevin. Make sure to follow him at Unknown Zone on Whatnot if you want to buy or sell cards, because he'll listen to anything for a good deal. He'll buy your cards if it's cheap enough, but he can sell you great deals. Make sure to follow him there. Unknown Zone TJ on Twitter for the sports takes. You don't want to miss those. Tevin, my brother, thank you so much. I appreciate you. We will be back one more time if we can before the championship, possibly before the Final Four.
We'll definitely be back before the championship. We'll definitely be back.
Breaking news, Tevin is in for another episode. Make sure you tune into that. Make sure to share this one so it helps, and we want to know you want to see another episode. Tevin, my brother, appreciate you as always.
Always, brother. Always love, man. You guys, appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in.